Harry and Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media domain.
Meghan and Harry are not entitled to privacy in this matter, and their privacy is trumped by our right to know that no bastard is going to sit on the throne of this country.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle built a multi-million-dollar empire by speaking their truth. But what if their entire brand is built on a single devastating lie, a secret about their own children so profound it threatens to not only destroy their credibility, but also trigger a crisis for the British crown itself? The first cracks in the fairy tale appeared not with a bang, but with a wall of impenetrable silence. For generations, the birth of a royal heir followed a sacred pact between the crown and its people, culminating in one iconic moment. The new mother, exhausted but dutiful, presenting her child on the hospital steps. Princess Diana did it. A poised Kate Middleton did it flawlessly 3 times at the Lindo Wing, her adherence to tradition a powerful symbol of continuity and, most importantly, transparency. This ritual was never just a photo op, it was a public confirmation of the line of succession, a pact of trust. But when it came to the birth of Archie, Meghan Markle didn't just bend the rules, she took a sledgehammer to them. The public was fed a confusing stream of misdirection, with an official announcement claiming she was in labor hours after she had reportedly already given birth in secret. The location was treated like a state secret, and days later, a tightly controlled photo call was arranged inside Windsor Castle. It felt less like a joyful family moment and more like a carefully managed Hollywood press event. This wasn't a simple plea for privacy. It was a deliberate act of obfuscation that created a vacuum of truth. And into that void, the first dark whispers of suspicion began to find their voice. If the secrecy around Archie's birth planted seeds of doubt, the arrival of Lilibet caused them to bloom into a garden of outright disbelief. This time, there was no pretense of royal protocol. The announcement came not from Buckingham Palace, but from a perfectly polished statement released by their American PR team, a move that fully severed the event from the crown. There were no hospital steps, no staged photo calls, not even a blurry candid shot. The second child of a prince, 7th in line to the throne, was introduced to the world as a press release. The complete absence of any visual evidence was staggering, creating a fertile ground for the internet's most explosive theory to take root and flourish. This is where the term moonbump entered the mainstream lexicon. Online sleuths who had been watching Meghan's every move began compiling a mountain of photographic evidence from the months leading up to the announcement. They pointed to pictures where her baby bump seemed to change size and shape in unnatural ways, appearing to sit oddly high or even fold when she sat down. While once dismissed as a cruel conspiracy, the visual inconsistencies became too numerous for many to ignore. The argument grew louder. The woman in the photos did not move like a heavily pregnant person. The secrecy wasn't about protecting privacy. It was about concealing the fact that there was no pregnancy to begin with. These were just online whispers, but they were about to be given a voice of shocking authority. The storm of online speculation needed a lightning rod to strike the mainstream, and it found one in the formidable voice of Angela Levin. For years, the rumors had been confined to blogs and social media threads, easily dismissed by the Sussexes' powerful PR machine as the work of faceless trolls and conspiracy theorists. But Angela Levin is no online troll. She is a seasoned royal biographer, an author who was once granted intimate, one-on-one access to Prince Harry himself. She had observed him, studied the institution, and understood its ancient rules. When she spoke, it wasn't as a speculator, but as an expert who had decided to voice the unthinkable out loud. In a statement that still echoes years later, Levin dropped her bombshell. She didn't just mention the surrogacy rumors, she connected them directly to the British Constitution. She articulated the core of the crisis. If the children weren't the biological offspring of Meghan, their royal bloodline would be in question, directly threatening their place in the line of succession. Suddenly, this was no longer about a strange-looking baby bump or secretive birth plans. Levin had transformed a shadowy internet theory into a legitimate constitutional question. She gave a voice and a framework to the doubts of millions, turning whispers into a credible threat that the monarchy could no longer ignore. It was a direct shot at their legitimacy, and it demanded a response. Faced with a direct challenge to his children's legitimacy, Prince Harry stood at a crossroads. He could have calmly dismantled the rumors with simple, verifiable proof, protecting his family and ending the crisis. Instead, he chose a path of furious retaliation, a decision that is now widely seen as the moment he exposed his own fear. Rather than offering clarity, Harry unleashed his lawyers. A barrage of legal threats and angry letters were sent out, not to disprove the claims, but to silence those making them. This wasn't the response of a confident father secure in his truth. It was the panicked reaction of a man desperately trying to plug a leak in a crumbling dam. The irony was staggering, and it wasn't lost on the public. The prince, who had built his new brand on escaping media scrutiny, was now using his immense wealth and power to intimidate anyone who dared ask a question he didn't like. His actions didn't read as protective. They read as profoundly hypocritical and deeply revealing. Every legal threat he issued backfired spectacularly. Instead of killing the story, his aggression acted as validation, making him look like he had something catastrophic to hide. His rage didn't project strength, it projected terror. While Meghan remained strategically silent, Harry's public tantrum only confirmed the world's suspicions and led to one unified, deafening demand. As Harry's legal threats continued to backfire, the public conversation, which continues even today, fixated on a simple, unspoken solution. It was a three-letter word that held the power to instantly silence every critic and every debate and restore their credibility. DNA. A single scientifically verifiable test was all it would take to end the entire crisis. What has become clear over the years is that this was never just about privacy. For the British monarchy, bloodline is a constitutional matter, not a personal one. The legitimacy of an heir is a subject of public and state interest, forming the very foundation of the institution. The demand for proof wasn't an outrageous intrusion, it was a call for the most basic requirement of their royal status. Yet, as the calls for a test grew from a whisper to a roar, the response from the Sussex camp was a wall of deafening silence. To this day, they have treated the suggestion as a grotesque violation, refusing to even acknowledge it. This refusal has become, for many, the most damning piece of evidence in the entire saga. Their silence is not seen as a dignified defense of their children, but as a calculated avoidance of a truth they cannot afford to have exposed. It suggests the reality of the situation is far more damaging than any of the public's wildest speculations. By refusing to provide the one thing that could vindicate them, they have allowed this single question to haunt every move they make. The fallout from their silence wasn't just confined to tabloid gossip. It began to poison their professional empire from the inside out. The brand Harry and Meghan tried to build was founded on one single powerful concept: their truth. But as the public began to seriously question that truth, the entire structure started to wobble. The most spectacular failure was the collapse of their multi-million-dollar Spotify deal. The partnership ended in a blaze of public humiliation, with a top executive famously labeling them effing grifters. It was a brutal assessment, reflecting a wider industry sentiment that the Sussexes were failing to deliver, their star power dimmed by their ever-growing credibility problem. Their Netflix projects, while released, were met with similar criticism. They were seen as endlessly retelling the same story of victimhood to a public that was no longer buying it. How can you sell yourself as a teller of profound truths when you refuse to answer the most fundamental truth about your own family? The market for their brand of authenticity was shrinking fast. Looking back from today, the connection is undeniable. You cannot build a global brand on the currency of trust while simultaneously inviting deep distrust into your personal life. The professional failures were not isolated incidents. They were symptoms of a much deeper issue. The whispers about their children had permanently damaged their most valuable asset, their believability. We are now far beyond a simple celebrity scandal. What remains, even today in 2025, is not just a story about Harry and Meghan, but a story about a potential constitutional crisis in the making. The questions they refuse to answer have left a permanent stain, not just on their own legacy, but on the institution they fled. A monarchy's power is not derived from popularity, but from legitimacy. It lives and dies on the absolute certainty of its bloodline. By shrouding their children's origins in a fog of secrecy and doubt, The Sussexes have created a fundamental weakness in the line of succession, a vulnerability that continues to be a point of debate across the globe. The woman who styled herself as a modernizing force now looks like the architect of its potential undoing, and the prince who was born to protect the crown has become its most unpredictable liability, his fear-driven reactions causing more damage to the monarchy's reputation than any external enemy ever could have. To this day, the constitutional time bomb they planted remains ticking. No proof has been offered, and no official action has been taken, leaving a dangerous ambiguity at the heart of the royal family. In their chaotic and self-serving quest for personal freedom, have Harry and Meghan inadvertently lit the fuse on the monarchy's greatest and perhaps final crisis? Ultimately, the story of Harry and Meghan is a profound lesson in control. In their relentless effort to craft a perfect public narrative, they created a story that is now defined by the one damning silence they cannot escape. That silence echoes louder today than ever before, drowning out every other version of their truth that they have tried to sell to the world. But this crisis didn't begin with the questions surrounding their children. That was merely the endgame of a strategy set in motion years earlier. The blueprint for the current chaos, with all its ambition and calculated moves, was laid long before they ever fled to California. The initial red flags were far more revealing than anyone realized at the time, hiding in plain sight. To understand the full story, you must see how it truly began. Click the video on your screen now, where we expose the shocking origins of their royal rebellion. It is the essential missing piece of the puzzle, and once you see it, you will never look at their carefully constructed fairy tale the same way again.